So the last session that I attended today was put on by Darmesh Shah. He's the founder of HubSpot.com, and he's also the author of Inbound Marketing. He gave me a copy of his book today, which I'm really looking forward to reading. Thank you for that. His talk was called Growing Traffic and Leads with Thought Leadership. The title intrigued me. It was something that, I had a couple of choices for sessions to go to this afternoon, and of all of them, I thought this kind of seemed like it might be the most interesting. And surprisingly, it was actually a really quiet seminar or session. There wasn't a lot of people in there. I don't know why I keep calling them seminars, but seminar, session, whatever I call it, that's what it was. But essentially, it was really quiet. There wasn't that many people there, which I found a little bit shocking. Anyway, I don't have enough time to go over his entire talk, so I'm going to kind of brush over these subjects really quickly. Of all the talks I went to, this was the most inspiring. I really felt empowered after watching his talk, because he gave some really good insights for how to create killer content. So he talks about being a leader in your niche and trying to, not trying to be a rock star to the whole world. Just try and be a rock star within your own niche. Don't try and be all things to the whole world online. When you're looking at your competitors, he says, don't fight the ninja unless you are one. So in other words, and this has been echoed in other sessions, don't go up against these competitors that you just cannot fight. The big chain stores and the companies with huge ad budgets. You're going to have a hard time going up against them. So he suggests finding your own way and doing it your own way without trying to compete with them directly. And if you find a niche, a lot of people find these micro niches and they become the dominant factor or the dominant force in their niche. And he said that one of the pitfalls that companies come up across, and I think this is really interesting, is that they don't build what traditional business refers to as a barrier of entry. So when you start to dominate a niche, you might get lazy because you are dominating that niche. What you need to be doing is you need to be investing money in content and software and interactivity and building a community within that niche and becoming an authority in that niche. Every time you spend money or you do something or you develop a piece of software, you create an extra step of entry for the next person, the me too, that wants to come into your niche, which is really interesting because most companies don't think about that, and that's why their competitors come in really quickly and copy what they did and take 50% or 40% of their business. Really good piece of advice. So build a barrier of entry around your niche. Pushing messages no longer works. It's all about pulling traffic in. He's not a fan at all of paying for traffic at all. He doesn't believe in buying traffic. He said that you can build your entire business on free traffic, and that's been echoed a lot this week. Put your domain name in your ads. Branding helps. That we discussed in the Facebook. Something I tell people in my course is write and build your website for human beings, not for Googlebot. Make your website so that it makes people happy. Forget about Google. And obviously you want to make sure that your SEO basics are in place so that you minimize the friction between you and Google, but don't write your content, don't create content for Googlebot. Let's see here. Don't sell too hard too soon. That seems to be echoed a lot. Don't try and monetize out of the gate. That's really important. Experiment with different forms of content. This was a really interesting tidbit that he gave, was that they spent $150. I wish I could show you a copy of this comic. Maybe I'll link to it from the blog post. But there was this really cool comic that they put up on their blog, and they paid $150 to have this comic created, which is a social media commentary. It was kind of a funny comic that he put up on his slide. But what was really cool is that this comic went viral and got to the front page of Dig and generated a massive amount of users to their website. So one really good piece of content, or one really unique piece of content, can trump tens of thousands of pieces of crappy content. Kind of goes against what the article marketing talk was about. We're not talking about article marketing now. We're talking about creating content that you're going to put up on your own site. So the take home for me on this one was, I'm going to start creating some comics because I use Comic Life on the Mac. I have a really easy time putting them together. I'm going to see how it goes. So you'll probably start to see some comics on my blog just as an experiment to see how well they do in terms of going viral. Try something radical. 9 times out of 10 it's going to flop, but 1 time out of 10 you're going to make a splash. Don't be average. Let's see. Let's see. Use hashtags in the titles of your blog posts, because when they get retweeted, those hashtags will carry through. I thought that was kind of interesting. I've never done that before. One of the things I really liked was within your actual blog post. So many times we want to get a blog post retweeted. We don't think about tweeting pieces of the blog post. So he actually had this blog post, and I can't remember the name of it, but they basically referred to three words and three words for internet marketing or something like that. And he essentially had all these lines of 3-word statements that were really cool. And next to each one of those lines was a little text link that said "tweet this." And so you could just tweet, instead of tweeting a link back to his blog post or the whole article or whatever it might be, it was just those 3 words that got tweeted, and I'm assuming with a hashtag and probably an reply back to his Twitter account. But I thought that was really cool to actually take quotes from within your blog and then put a little tweet button next to them so that people can just tweet that individual quote. So I'm going to try that. I thought that was a really cool tip. He talks about dig versus stumble upon, and he said that the problem with dig, and I've experienced this myself, is that it's very binary. So in other words, you submit a link to dig, and you either get no traffic, or you get to the front page and you get a ton of traffic. And there's really no in between. There's no kind of like, oh, I'm getting 100 visitors a day from dig. It's like you're either getting 2 visitors or you're getting 200,000 visitors, and there's not a whole lot of room in the middle. Stumble Upon, on the other hand, will provide you with a decent amount of visitors if you submit to them, and the people like your stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He says create fan pages on Facebook, not groups. Facebook ads is a really good portal, not to pay for, but to go in and do some market research. So he just goes in there a lot of the time to see how many people in the United States are engaged between this age and this age. Or he can do a lot of demographic background market research by using that ad tool, but never actually submitting the ad, because it shows you all kinds of demographics when you're doing your targeting. I thought that was kind of interesting. He says that regular folks use Twitter now. It's not just the geeks and the bloggers, and that's true. I mean, it's getting to the point now where a lot of average people are starting to use Twitter, and so that's where it kind of gets to the point where marketers can really supercharge this thing. Twitter itself, a very small number of people actually complete their Twitter profile. So a very low number of people have a bio, have a link to their website, or have a background image in Twitter. Make sure that you fill in all these blanks. It makes a big difference in your following and your profile. He talks about how to get retweets. Tweets with longer words with more syllables get more retweets than tweets with shorter words with less syllables, which I thought was interesting. Asking people, please RT. Put please RT at the end of your tweet, you'll get more tweets. Asking, ask and you shall receive. I've heard this before. Between noon Eastern Time and 1 Eastern Time is the best time to get retweets, because that's when the most people are using Twitter. He talked about LinkedIn a little bit. I'm not going to get into that. I don't really have enough time. He talks about the power of free. This was also echoed in Jay Berkowitz's talk about giving away free reports and ebooks without a registration form. This seems to be the common theme right now. It's funny that I'm just getting into list building and trying to dangle stuff behind an email box, and all these guys are telling me, no, just give your stuff away, people will come back. So I'm going to play with both, and I'll report back and let you know how those work out. He says, have fun. Don't do things that you don't want to do, because we live in a world now, and the internet's given us the power to do whatever we want to do. So don't just do work because it's work, or find a niche that sucks because it's long tail and you think you can dominate it. Find a niche that you're going to enjoy. Maybe you like Ultimate Fighting Championship, and you can find a niche in where you can teach people jiu-jitsu moves, or I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out here, but I think it's a really good tip is to make sure that you're having fun with what you're doing. I really enjoy what I do, or I wouldn't want to get up in the morning, and I think you've got to do the same thing. And the last was find your superpower. Find the thing that you're the absolute best at and try and manipulate that.